Now, when we're talking about email marketing here, and I guess we should start specifically with the subject line too,
Mhm.
because I think it kind of sets the whole tone with the attitude. We start with attitude here, and
Mhm.
I think a lot of salespeople, when they're sending individual messages, but also just marketers, screw up the subject line right in the bot. They start trying to sell on the subject line. They overdo it. They overcomplicate it. It sounds like spam. We've all been trained by 10,000 emails to just delete stuff that's
Right.
spam. What's the ideal attitude for maybe even approaching email marketing in the first place, but certainly in starting this conversation?
And I think a lot of marketers have email a little bit backwards because what they do is they spend all this time on what's inside the email, the greatest copy, the greatest offer, the most perfect everything. And then right before they send it out, what do? They're like, oh my God, I need a subject line. And they spend like 30 seconds or less. And they write something really not giving any consideration. Where if the email doesn't get opened, who actually cares what's in your email, right? So you really want to spend some time and energy on that subject line because it is the thing that's going to decide whether or not that email gets opened. And there are literally things that you could do, little things that you could do that cost you no money, that take 5 seconds to try, that can radically change the number of people that are opening up your email. So focusing on that subject line, while it may seem insignificant, it may seem ridiculous, it is a game changer in terms of your overall campaign performance, results, sales, and so on. So that's why I go so deep on subject lines because it's everything.
Yeah, I think it separates out the humans from the robots really easily, but
Mhm.
it's also like you said, what gets read. Some people have thousands of unread messages in there, and they're just skimming over stuff, and that's all they see. Other people, prioritize stuff, or they put the whole message in the subject line, and it can be different tactics. So let's talk here and maybe narrow our discussion
Yeah.
around sales emails. If I was going to reach
Yep.
out to a prospect, what
Yep.
kind of mindset do I need to have in order to connect well over email and start a good conversation, get a
Well,
response?
the first thing about the subject line and email in general is that there's a lot of misinformation on the planet about what you can and cannot do with email, right? If you go ahead and you Google, best practices for email marketing, you'll see things that saying like avoid spam trigger words, okay, avoid capitalization in your subject line, avoid exclamation marks or question marks and things like that. And it's really doing a disservice to salespeople and to marketers because that's information from 10 years ago, right? You don't
Yes.
go to the junk folder, the spam folder, because you use a certain word, like the word free, for example, in your subject line. You go to the junk folder or the spam folder because your overall lack of engagement and sending reputation. So there's a liberation that's first off needed for people that are sending out email to know that you can write what you want to write. You can write it the way that you want to write it and with whatever characters that you want to use. And that's not the reason you're going to go to the junk or spam folder. But then you get into, okay, what are things that we can do in that subject line? And one of the things that we see work incredibly well for sales emails is personalization, but not the personalization that everybody always talks about. When we talk about personalization email, a lot of people like
Your
to put in the
first
subject
name?
line, yeah, first name, right? They're like, Mike, comma, check this out. And 3 years ago, that was cool. No one was doing it, right? And then if you go to your inbox now, you see your first name in like 50% of the subject lines because it worked so well. So we all copy each other. And now it's almost like wallpaper. And it actually, in some cases, actually is a negative performer. But the personalization that crushes it, that does so well, and this is the concept you want to plant in your mind always. The sooner you could tell somebody who they are, the faster they'll engage. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're marketing to people in the construction industry. Okay. In the subject line, you say, this is critical for people in the construction industry, for construction professionals only. Okay. You're telling somebody this is specifically for people. And like, if I was to think about marketing, so I'm in marketing for marketers only. I'm like, oh my God, what is this? I got to open it up. On the consumer side, if you do it on their interest or what's going on in their life, for DIYers only, for people renovating their home, right? And you already know this information, you know who it is you're marketing to, right? You're marketing to a small business owner, you're marketing to HR professionals, you're marketing, to grandparents, to affluent investors, whoever they are. You take who they are and you tell them immediately the first part of your subject line, and you use that as the personalization, and it will lift your open rate, the percentage of people open up your emails, by over 30% just by telling the person who they are. So when we talk about personalization, that tactic more than any other really drives results.
I love that, and it's one of the things I'm going to talk about at my talk at Inbound is hyper personalization, and you can even create and segment funnels based on personality style now. So we can put all the high D people, we can give them the too long didn't read version of an email, and all the people that need nice, flowery, steady human relations sort of language, we can write a different email for them. And I think a lot of people in email marketing are missing that. They're still trying to blanket personas and send the same subject line to everybody, and that's going to really hurt your
Yeah,
engagement.
and the thing in that is, I think in marketing in general, in sales, I think the message is starting to get out that segmentation is the right path, right? You don't send the same thing to everybody. But I think the piece that's still missing is, not only do you want to segment based on whatever the different buckets are, but then you want to tell the segments that you recognize who's in that segment. You actually want to state the obvious. Like, this is for HR professionals, even though, of course, that's the segment of people that you're marketing to. Just because you know who they are, they don't know that you know who they are, right? So I think that element is critical. And then the other things in the subject lines that really tends to do well is playing on some of our human elements. What I mean by that is things like fear. Fear does incredibly well in subject lines, like the 4 mistakes you need to avoid. Oh my God, what are they? Literally, by saying mistakes in the subject line, we're all like, oh, it's almost more important than what's working best. It's almost better than saying the 4 things that will make everything work great. You want to avoid the pitfalls. So like words like the 4 mistakes you want to avoid do incredibly well. And then things like suspense. When you use like if you had 3 dots, dot, dot, dot to the end of your subject lines, right? You'll be shocked for your sales emails how much of a boost that gets. Okay. It could be literally anything. Our biggest discount of the year, dot, 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 right? The keynote is dot, dot, dot. Have you seen dot, dot, dot? Literally, if you write, have you seen dot, 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 you will get more people opening it. And then there'll be people that are listening to this like, that's gimmicky. That feels like spam. That doesn't blah, blah, blah. But here's the reality of it. When they open it up, it's on you to have really good content for it to be really relevant, right? If they don't open it up, then you lose. Right now, you can't you can't pull the wool over their eyes. It can't not be what it's about. It has to be on point. But yeah, getting that email opened, there's a lot of different ways to kind of to beat the system so that way they engage, and that's how you win. That's how you win.